All right, today we're going to talk about solving equations with rational exponents. So the steps are as followed. This is very similar to when we solved for square roots. Before we isolated the square root, now we're going to isolate the rational exponent. So when you're looking at this example right here, we need to first move the 12 to the other side by adding 12. Then we need to divide both sides by 3 because that's attached to our rational exponent. After we divide it by 3, we get x to the 2/5 equals 4. Now, here's what's new. Is before we've canceled out a square with the square root, and the reason that worked was because if you were to have the square root, let's just say x, this is the same as x to the 1/2. So when you square it, it's going to equal x to the first power. So it cancels out the exponent. So you've done that before. But now we're just using different exponents for it. So if you have 2/5, you're going to take it to the 5/2 power. And what you do to one side, got to do to the other. And then solve the equation. Remember, you're going to only use the positive square roots of the radicand. So here we've got x equals 4 to the 5/2 power. We can rewrite that because remember your index is 2. If there's no index written, it's assumed to be 2. So that's why there's no number there. All right, and then we can just enter this into our calculator, which would be 32. And then of course check your answers just to make sure. So we just plugged that in and we got 0 equals 0, which works. So let's go ahead and I'll show you one. You can do this by hand. As far as simplifying, but once you get into the bigger numbers, you can use your calculator for this. But first, we have x to the 4/3 power. So our exponent, our rational exponent, is already isolated. So we need to do the inverse of 4/3, which is 3/4. So what we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. We're going to take this side to the 3/4 power. So when you do that, you'll get x equals 256 to the 3rd power, and you're going to take the 4th root of that. And that would be 64. And then you can check your answers from there. All right, now I'm going to show you on the calculator real quick. Let's say you have a TI. So you're going to go, and there's a couple different ways to do this with the calculator. I'm just going to take 256, and you're going to use your exponent key. Now mine just automatically goes, but remember it's the one that looks like a little arrow. Now typically what I like to do is I like to put the exponent in parentheses. If you have a fraction anytime, I always put it in parentheses. So I just go 3 divided by 4, parentheses, and then you just press enter and it's going to give you 64. Another way you could also do this is by taking the root, and you can say which root you want to take. So if you go to your math button and go down, keep scrolling. Once you get, oops, too far, option 5. So once you've got 5, if you notice there's an N, that's where you can put whatever root you want. So you can press enter and you can say I want the 4th root, and then inside, oops, arrow, there you go, 256, and press enter. Oh, I forgot to the 3rd power, so that was my bad. Okay, so let's try that again. I'm going to go option 5, and we said it's to the 4th root, and then inside, I want to go 256 to the 3rd power. All right, there we go. So I just forgot to put to the 3rd power on the inside. So you can use your math key to get roots of whichever index you need, or you could do the reciprocal and do the exponent key. All right, oops, there's our other notes we took. All right, so now let's go ahead, let's look at this problem. So we want to isolate this part because this is what the exponent is attached to. So first, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. That's going to cancel, and I'm left with x plus 4 to the 2/3 power. So now that we've isolated this portion, now we're going to flip it, or take the reciprocal, and we'll have 3/2. Take this to the, raise it to the 3/2 power. And what we do to this side, we have to do to this side also. And then we're going to, these two are going to give you 1. So all of this is to the first power. And then here, you can write it this way. Now, since this is a pretty small number, if I've got it to the third power, I know that I can either just take the square root individually of each 4 and get 2, or I know I can kick out a couple of the numbers because since this is a group of 2, you're going to get 8. Now that we got that, let's go ahead and subtract 4 to get x by itself, and x equals 4. And let's see, yeah. Now this one looks pretty long and complicated, but it's just basic steps that you've always been doing when you're solving equations. All right, so first we're going to move, because the goal is we want to get this part isolated. So we need to move everything else to the other side. So we're going to move the negative 4 over here by adding 4. And then I'm going to get negative 486 divided by 2 times 3x minus 4 to the 5/2 power. So now I need to move this guy over, and I'm going to do that by dividing both sides by negative 2. And then I've got 243, and then that cancels, and I'm left with 3x minus 4 to the 5/2 power. So now that we've got this part isolated, now we can do inverse, or the reciprocal, excuse me, just 2/5. And what we do here, we're going to raise this side to the 2/5 also. So you can rewrite it like this, or you can just go ahead and plug it into your calculator like this. I like the exponents better, but you can do either way. So I'm going to go, clear, see, what is it, 243 exponent, and I like to do parentheses to the, what did I say, 2/5 power. All right, so 243 to the 2/5 power, and I got 9. Or if you wanted to do the math key, go to option 5, and we have the index is 5, and then I know inside I have 243, and then don't forget your exponent to the second power. Press enter, and we get the same thing either way. So it doesn't matter which way you do it. I think to me the exponent way is easier just because it's less buttons I have to press for that. But either way works. And then you're going to get 9 and equals 3x minus 4. So go ahead, add 4, and then divide by 3, and you're going to get x equals 13/3. All right, I'm going to have you try those two problems, and then I'm going to show you, we're going to do number 6 together. It's very similar to what we just did, but we want to isolate this part, so we need to move everything else to the other side. So first I want to move the 10 over by adding 10. And then I have 2048 equals all of this. Well, remember, I want to isolate this part, so now I have to move the 2. So divide both sides by 2, and these cancel out, so I'm left with 3x plus 5 to the 2/3 power, and then this is 1024. Now we're going to take the inverse of 2/3, which is 3/2. And remember, those cancel each other out to give you an exponent of 1. So I'm left with 3x plus 5 equals 32,786. Again, I just entered this into the calculator. You could rewrite it if you wanted to. You don't have to. And then I went through, divided both sides by 3, and I got x equals 10,921. Now, I only checked on one problem. I will tell you all the answers will work in this situation, but it is important that you do go through and you check your answers just in case. All right, and that is solving equations with rational exponents.